Before we get started, I have a quick favor. I've been self-funding the Finding Genius podcast for 5 years now. I've done over 3,000 episodes. And as you can see on YouTube, we're up over 1 million views on the channel, which is fantastic. The next thing I really want to push on is to get up to 10,000 subscribers. Because once we do, we'll be able to put a donate button and we'll be able to solicit donations to help keep the podcast running and to also get the Finding Genius Foundation moving along. We have a big project studying anxiety, depression, and PTSD and working on a product to help people overcome these problems because I've seen them explode recently after the last 2 years of the whole virus situation. So if you would, please subscribe to the podcast. That would help us tremendously. Give us a thumbs up and check in the description for Buy Me a Coffee. It's about $5. If you could buy me a coffee, I'd really appreciate it. It would help keep the channel going, and I love coffee. Thank you.
Forget frequently asked questions,
common sense, common knowledge, or Google.
How about advice from a real genius? 95% of people in any profession are good enough to be qualified and licensed. 5%
go above and beyond.
They become very good at what they do, but only
0.1%
are real geniuses. Richard Jacobs has made it his life's mission to find them for you. He hunts down and interviews geniuses in every field: sleep science, cancer, stem cells, ketogenic diets, and more. Here come the geniuses. This is the Finding Genius Podcast
with Richard Jacobs.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Finding Genius podcast. My guest today is Beynon. He's the founder and CEO of Mindbloom, and we're going to talk about ketamine and how it has helped transform people that he's in a positive way. In my own family, I have a couple members that have done ketamine infusions, and it's been a huge relief and a huge help. So I think this is going to be a very, very important topic. So welcome, Dylan. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Richard. I'm fired up to chat with you today.
Well, cool. Well, tell me a bit about your background. How did you and ketamine meet?
I grew up working poor, Anaheim, California, right next to Disneyland, or as we called it, Anacrime. I grew up in a family that was just obliterated by the mental health crisis. My mom was homeless for 15 years before being found dead in an alley from fentanyl and meth overdose. A year later, my dad found my sister dead from a fentanyl overdose too, on the floor of my childhood bedroom just 3 weeks after she got out of rehab. From growing up in a family with a lot of violence, trauma, chaos, I had complex PTSD myself. And after my sister overdosed, my dad, who's my hero, who's my adoptive stepfather, was suicidal. And what saved both of us was psychedelic medicine. And so what I came to learn building 2 other venture-backed tech companies before Mindbloom is as I started really exploring getting involved in mental health, both because of my family history and because I just kept seeing so many friends and so many families suffering and thought there's got to be a better way because we're living in the 21st century, and why does the mental health crisis just keep getting worse and worse everywhere I look? And what I came to see was that all of the existing treatment options, all of the strategies that were being promoted by mainstream psychiatry and mental health were just clinically shown to be totally ineffective. This was pretty mind-boggling, Richard. About a quarter of Americans have a serious, like a mental health issue, have a diagnosable mental health issue. Overdose deaths have like 5x over the last 20 years. Suicide is a leading cause of death in America. Depression is the number 1 cause of disability worldwide. Everywhere you look, that the mental health crisis is getting worse and worse. And we've got 50 million Americans who are taking SSRIs, antidepressants like Lexapro and Prozac, 25 million Americans who are taking anti-anxiety meds like Xanax, 25 million Americans who are doing traditional trauma-led talk therapy. But depression has almost 3x'd over the past 20 years. So
it's crazy. Yeah. I know when some people are depressed, they don't want to do anything. They don't want to go anywhere. So they just, they go into this state of like lethargy and nothing gets done. They don't want to talk to people, and it can be a downward spiral,
Yeah, it's really tough. I had, so Mindbloom, we're the biggest provider of psychedelic therapy in the world. We facilitated over 700,000 psychedelic therapy sessions, helping people with depression, anxiety, PTSD. And we've done it in a way that has both brought the cost for our clients down like 80% from infusion clinics, like the ones it sounds like your family have gone to. It's 100% at home, so it's completely accessible. We reach like 85% of Americans. And we have like the best outcomes in the game, which have been published in peer-reviewed clinical studies, which are the largest clinical studies in psychedelic or ketamine therapy history. And the way that we give people incredible outcomes is that we're giving people like the equivalent of like world-class facilitation through psychiatrists, transformational and psychedelic coaches, an online community of thousands and thousands of clients sharing their experiences, a mobile app that's like Calm or Headspace for psychedelic therapy with hundreds of tracks that we've composed ourselves for the sessions, AI voice journaling and AI psychedelic art, and so much more.
Yeah, the typical protocol from what I've seen, so you can get a shot where you can get an infusion, where they have like a therapist sit with you and a paramedic sit with you and all that stuff, but they are expensive. The protocol I've seen for the infusions is like they want you to come med every week 6 times, and each infusion is like at least $600. So you're looking at probably at least $4,000 for the initial treatment from what I've seen, just letting you know. And the shot, I don't know how much it is, but that's what I've seen out there from like 3 different clinics so far.
Yeah, we're 80% cheaper than that. And also, one thing I found really interesting, so Mindbloom, we offer 2 different formulations of ketamine. We offer tablets that you dissolve under your tongue and in your cheeks, and we offer injectable ketamine. So it's just a little insulin needle, just like a GLP-1 agonist, like Ozempic, in your stomach. It's like painless.
Are the tablets, you mean, are those troches, those dissolvable, like putty type ketamine?
We use rapid dissolve tablets, but they're quite similar. They dissolve more rapidly. The eponymous rapid dissolve tablets. But the injectable ketamine is the gold standard route of administration. It's by far the best. It's the best experience in terms of not having to have the flavor of ketamine in your mouth or in your nose. The best onset, it's like 3 to 5 minutes smooth onset, like taking off in an airplane, and the most predictable in terms of getting people the desired therapeutic dosing, which is really challenging actually, because everyone's brain chemistry is different, and keeping people there. But one thing,
like if you do an infusion, you can stop and come out of it if something goes wrong. I don't know what would, but with injection, what happens if you're like, this is too much?
Yeah. So I'm going to go 2 directions with your question. So one is, I actually find the fact that anybody is doing infusions fascinating because it actually makes absolutely no sense. So I have tried pretty much every route of administration of ketamine therapy, as have a lot of our providers and a lot of our clients who we interview. And it never made sense to me why you would do these IV in your vein infusions of ketamine versus injectable ketamine, whether that's subcutaneous in your stomach or like intramuscular in your arm or your booty. And a few reasons that it never made sense to me is, one, when you do injectable ketamine, the onset, so like the time it takes to feel the effects, are about 3 to 5 minutes. When you do the infusion, it's immediate. And so it's the difference between taking off in an airplane and getting blasted off in a rocket ship. And for a lot of people who are mental health patients and they're coming in, they are nervous as hell. And what you do before, during, and after a psychedelic or ketamine therapy session dramatically affects the quality of the experience and the quality of the outcomes. It can be the difference between life-changing or life-saving experience and results or traumatic experience.
And so what should you do to prepare, and what should you do afterwards and avoid?
So for instance, going into an experience with as much of like a calm mindset and a prepared mindset as possible is really valuable. So if somebody is like rushing in right away, they're not ready, and then they get blasted off with IV, it can be really tough. Another thing, and that's actually a big reason people look at our at-home model and they say, oh, at home, it sounds like it's not as much support or supervision. And that's going to be bad in terms of outcomes and a problem in terms of the experience. And it's actually the opposite, which is shown up in our actual peer-reviewed published clinical outcomes, which are best in class.
Why does at the infusion clinics then, why do they have like a nurse and a paramedic and a psychologist and all the other stuff? Like, are these all just trappings, or like, what can go wrong with?
So I would call it lazy thinking. So this was interesting. Or bad mimetics. When I started digging in and saying, well, why is everybody doing these IV infusions? And I started asking a lot of IV infusion providers, why IV? Why not the injectable? Because again, the IV, you get blasted off in a rocket ship. It's really jarring for a lot of people. A lot of people then have really challenging and even maybe deleterious to their clinical outcomes experiences, because the whole experience was terrifying, because they waited, they had somebody drive them to a clinic. They waited in a waiting room filling out forms. They go into some sterile clinic setting. They sit down, they get plugged into an IV. So they're on ketamine with their arm plugged into an IV. They've got a bunch of medical equipment that's unnecessary, monitoring their heart rate and things. Then they get blasted off. Then they come back down. They get shuttled out while they're still in the effects of ketamine, sign some discharge papers, and then are in an automobile probably a little nauseous, like driving home. If you're doing injectable at home, again, it's 35-minute smooth onset. You don't have to have a needle stuck in your arm the whole time. You're not traveling to and from. You're in the comfort and familiarity and convenience of your home on your couch, in your safe space, where you can like really prepare, feel comfortable and safe going into the experience, and like process and integrate the experience after.
Well, how long does it take for you to come out of it, injection versus infusion, or the whole process itself?
The same.
Because infusion, it's like, if it looks to be, I think it's about 60 minutes, then you come out for maybe 30 or 40. It's the same thing there.
Yeah, I call it 40. Call like on average, between 45 minutes to like an hour and a half, depending on how sensitive people are. But what I was saying is, so I kept asking people, like, why infusions? And what I heard was, well, that's what all the research is based on. And so I said, okay, well, all the clinical research is infusions. Well, why is all the clinical research infusions? They're just looking into that. And the reason is that when providers and researchers really at Yale started seeing that ketamine had these incredible antidepressant effects, part of it was they saw that people who went into the ER, the emergency room, and got ketamine for something else, who had depression, came out without depression. And so the early ketamine clinics were largely ER doctors, emergency room doctors, and anesthesiologists who were already providing ketamine, spinning out into their own ketamine clinics. They were used to using IVs because that's how they do it in the ER for anesthesiology. And that makes sense for that, because you want to knock somebody out immediately if they come in with like gunshot wounds or like a broken leg screaming. Two, oftentimes in the IV, you're mixing different medications, and you want to be able to like modulate the experience for people by turning the drip like up and down so that you can interact with the patient. But for a mental health patient who is undergoing this ketamine therapy experience, none of that makes sense. And it's way worse to blast them off, have them hooked up to an IV, than to have this injectable experience. But just nobody stopped to actually like think about it, which has been
maybe it's look, the medical industry is so powerful and so pervasive. Maybe the only way that ketamine can come now to people individually is to have it medicalized. Maybe the infusion clinics and all that are providing cover so that like the AMA and all that will leave you alone and allow you to do the stuff you do, because again, they wanted to mimic this like medical environment with all these trappings and all this extra expense. So I don't know, maybe it's a benefit in a weird way.
Yeah, the way we think about it, when I started the company, despite the fact that on the surface, we might look like one of these more drive-through pharmacy companies, where you text a doc, get a script, like for, hair pills or penis pills or something, because we have a, shiny consumer brand. We do a lot of online marketing. It's all telemedicine, so it's accessible and at home and can reach people where they're at, be more affordable. That we're actually going to be the outcomes company, that we're going to be a company that is 100% laser focused is our top thing on giving our clients the trust and confidence that they're getting the best experience and the best outcomes from ketamine therapy. Because again, like how you do it really matters. It could be the difference between saves your life and it ruins your life.
So we were talking just briefly about, I don't think we got into it enough, but how do you prepare for a session mentally and physically? And then what do you do afterwards, and what do you not do to make sure like it's not a bad experience? It's a good one.
One thing, so there's this concept in psychedelic therapy called set and setting. It essentially means mindset and your physical setting. So one is to be in a physical setting that feels very safe and comfortable. So oftentimes if you talk to somebody who's done, say, different psychedelic medicine, like psilocybin mushroom, and they've had a nightmare experience the first time, and you ask them like, where'd you do it? And it's like, well, I was intoxicated at a house party and someone gave me mushrooms and then I freaked out. It's like they weren't in a safe couple.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I only did it once, but I didn't know what I was doing. And they're like 3.5 grams each, the people I was with. And people, they're like, oh my God, that's a lot for the first time. I didn't know. And it was a crazy experience that I did not want to repeat because of it.
Yeah, that's a good amount for your first time. The mushrooms have also gotten a lot stronger. So 3.5 grams a long time ago is probably about equivalent for a lot of strains today of like 1 to 2 grams. But that's a full, you're going to be deep into a transcendent psychedelic state for most people, and is a very, very intense experience that, again, if you do it with the right mindset and physical setting going in, and you do it the right way, and then you integrate it after, it can be life-changing. Another way that you can prepare, which our clients do, which is really simple, is you set intentions going in. So journaling on what you're looking to get out of the experience could be like 3 words. It could be writing about why you want to experience this, something in your life you want to change, or something in your life you want to call in, or something in your life you want to eliminate, or, what is your intention for doing psychedelics therapeutically. It's really powerful to help prime people's subconscious. Another thing you can do is, whether if you have a meditation practice, a yoga practice, Qigong practice, or just like listening to guided meditations, or just like inspirational, calm spoken word before a session, or music to relax your nervous system before you go in. For example, at Mindbloom, we have a couple hundred tracks that we've composed that have taken us a long time. Been building Mindbloom for 7 years. But today we have the best music for ketamine therapy in the world. And didn't used to always be that way. It took a lot of work. And we often build different...
I'm going to say the most thing that I've done it, they said, but bad at it with usually one thing that I've heard it'd be okay. What's good, so-and-so's going back cool and things gonna be okay. They'll get that message, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, from the ketamine, and they feel comforted. Or another situation they're dealing with, again, it's going to resolve and you will be all right, and then they feel better. Is that what what happens with the people that you direct to do it? Do they get like we get a message from the experience in a way that things will be all right?
Yeah, there's usually a couple of things. One thing we do to help teach people how to navigate the experience, because there is a skill set to it, people get better at it over time, is we teach people a concept called TLO. It's a mantra. It stands for trust, let go, be open. So trust that, there's like over 1 million Americans have done therapeutic ketamine, also 1 million sessions of Mindbloom alone now, is pharmaceutical grade ketamine. The medicine is very safe. You are in good hands with your psychiatrist. You're safe at home. It's only going to last 45 minutes to an hour. Trust that people get great outcomes from this. Let go is one of the things that can go wrong for people during a psychedelic medicine experience, is if they really try to fight and over-direct the experience that they're having that's coming up in consciousness, the things they're seeing, the things they're thinking about, the things they're hearing. And so teaching people to remember, if they're fighting it, to just let go and be curious about what's coming up, and just sink way back and just ride it, and then be open. So to be like open and curious about what's coming up, and not try to like overanalyze it in the moment, that you can, after the session, analyze it and think about, what does it mean? What should I do about it? Make plans. But during the experience, almost like watch it like a movie and just see what comes up. We've actually had some clients who've literally gotten tattoos of TLO, which has been pretty wild.
Oh, wow. From what I've heard, the experience is like kind of like going through a screensaver. You close your eyes and you're like seeing shapes and colors and maybe feelings and things like that. It's like a dreamy, disassociated state. And then you come back after a while.
It depends on the dose. I would think there's a few different doses of ketamine. There is what you might call a psycholytic dose, a psychedelic dose, and a transcendent dose. So a psycholytic experience would be one where you are lucid enough that you can have a conversation with somebody. And so it's not the predominant methodology or protocol that people use, but there are a small percentage of providers who provide psycholytic doses and do, coaching or talk therapy while someone is under the effects of the medicine. Some people really like this for couples therapy in particular. So couples will take it, it'll dampen their ego. Not quite to the degree of MDMA therapy, which would be, I think, pretty game-changing for couples therapy when it's FDA approved for PTSD, and hopefully the next year. But it's like a pretty light dose you can navigate. Then the psychedelic dose is one where you're probably having pretty distinct visuals. Standing up and moving around is ill-advised, and you're not going to want to do it. And you're having a lot of different thoughts, probably a pretty strong and a very usually euphoric and positive way, emotional experience. And this is often the dose where it can like really knock people out of ruminative thought disorders and mood disorders that they're having. Depression, anxiety, PTSD, sometimes even like OCD, addiction. Really can like rewire the neural pathways and give people this like tremendous break from depression or anxiety that they haven't experienced sometimes in years. A transcendent dose or experience is one that feels deeply mystical. Sometimes people can experience ego death, where the concept of a self like no longer exists. You're just like purely experiencing it. And it can be, very mystical and powerful for people.
That one sounds pretty scary to me, but yeah.
I mean, oftentimes that's one of the benefits of ketamine. Ketamine actually has there's a lot of stigma attached to ketamine that is,
I remember on the rave scene in the 90s, people would go into a K-hole and, they would snort a bump, and that's how it used to be like 30 years ago.
Well, the thing too is that ketamine, it's a dissociative psychedelic. You're not very like physically able to manage your environment on it. So it's just, people see people on a high dose of ketamine in a social setting, it doesn't look great because they're on a low dose of an anesthetic. Like even really strong, every K-hole doses of ketamine are very low doses of ketamine compared to an anesthetic dose. So it's therapeutic ketamine is like 1/20th to 1/5 of what people get if they go to the hospital and they're getting put under with ketamine. It's a silent dose. So you're in a K-hole dose is like way less generally than an anesthetic dose. Anesthetic dose, you're gone, right? But if you're like laying there, eye shades going inward, ketamine is quite gentle. It's gentle physically compared to other psychedelics. It only lasts, again, like 45 minutes to an hour. It's ego dampening. So even if stuff comes up for people that can be challenging material, they're able to engage with it in a way that's a lot easier than other psychedelics like LSD or psilocybin. And so if you were like plotting out the sort of beginner to advanced gradients or spectrum of psychedelics, ketamine would be like in the beginner psychedelic side of the ladder.
Yeah, because mushrooms is like, let's say 5-6 hours, 4 to 6 hours. Acid, which I would never want to do, is I've heard 12.
Yeah.
They like go on to say ibogaine, I don't know, 30 hours of, where ayahuasca is supposed to 12 or 24. I mean, so an hour is a big deal in the scheme of.
Ayahuasca is like 4 to 6 hours, but people often, or like 3 to 5 even, but people ingest it multiple times throughout the evening usually.
Oh, so yeah, like an hour or 45 minutes seems a lot more manageable. You're not going to be, flying out there for nearly as long. What does the time component feel like for people that do it? Does it feel like time just slows down, or like how does time progress in their mind?
It's actually interesting to say that. It's one that actually varies a bit. So psychedelics are a little more stimulant in nature, like MDMA or MDA or methadone, usually compressed time. So people do them and all of a sudden they look up and they're like, where did the time go? Other more hallucinogenic psychedelics like LSD, psilocybin, dilate time, where that 6 to 10 hours on LSD could feel like, a year. And ketamine goes both ways. Some people report feeling like a compressed time where, they sit up and it's been an hour. Others can feel like time dilated. It's interesting. It also, ketamine amongst all psychedelics, it works on a different part of your brain. And the part of your brain it works on largely modulates a few things, including memory. And so people can have more challenges recalling what happened during the experience. One of the things that can really help coalesce the experience for people so that they can have more material to work on afterwards, when they're really integrating and understanding like the insights that came up and what to do about them and how to improve their lives, is by immediately, once they're sort of able and feel ready for it, to journal on the experience. One of my favorite things that we built at Mindbloom for our clients recently is we ship people a physical journal as part of a kit we call Bloom Box. It has like an eye shade and some other things to enhance the experience for people. We also had journaling in our mobile app, but we recently launched AI voice journaling. So right after your session, you can open the app and it prompts you. It asks you a few questions like, what did you see during the experience? What emotions came up? How did your session connect to your intentions? Or do you have any big insights? You just voice journal into the app about what happened during the session. And then after that, what we do is we give you, in addition to the full transcript of your session that you voice journaled on, we give you the AI generated like key themes for the session, and then a description of like what those themes mean. We give you automatically generated integration ideas. So based on like your medical history, based on things that came up in your session, your goals, here are some things that you could do next to continue like integrating this experience and improving your behavioral thoughts and emotional patterns. Really make changes in your life that stick while you're in this neuroplastic window from the ketamine, where your brain's more likely to actually make changes. And we also give you, which is really neat, AI generated art. So I've had all these psychedelic experiences throughout my life. Psychedelics changed my life, like I said earlier, just like ketamine changed and saved my dad's life when he was suicidal. And I've had these experiences where I would love to be able to like draw them both as like a landmark milestone for me to remember the experience and to share with other people. Seen some cool stuff, powerful, like really meaningful to me that I like to share with other people.
It's really cool.
Well, I don't have any like artistic ability, so, or at least I haven't gone down that path. And so what we launched was AI generated art. So when people voice journal, it now gives them a few different pieces of AI generated art. So all of our clients are now psychedelic artists, and they're creating art that like acts as different milestones for each of their sessions. And I'm really excited to give them the opportunity maybe soon to like buy prints of those and hang them.
It would be interesting to see over time, like how has your artwork changed as you've done multiple integrations or with clients. Have you ever looked at that?
If you wanted, instead of a thumbnail of just my normal looking face, I could give you a thumbnail for the podcast of a piece of psychedelic art generated from Mindbloom of me.
Well, that'd be cool. Yeah, or a link to it. But have you looked at that? Have you studied or encouraged people to look at their art over, someone's done, I don't know, multiple sessions over 6 months or a year. How does their art change?
That's really interesting. We haven't studied that. I mean, art can be really powerful for people. We've even had people, some of our clients, because there's so many of these new explosion of AI tools coming out. Some of our clients have taken, there's a tool called like Suno, SUNO or Suno AI, and they've plugged like their transcript from their session into Suno, and Suno creates AI music. And so people have created songs from their sessions that they've like put into playlists. And so each of their sessions has a song, like literal music, like a music track, which is pretty cool. We haven't built that into our app yet. But I think for people, like seeing or hearing something that brings them back into the experience and helps them reconnect to it. So like, for example, for me, one of the top motifs or things that come up for me over and over and over again in my psychedelic experiences is like the importance of the relationships I have to people in my life, like to my father, who's my hero and saved my life. Like if it wasn't for him, I would have been he's my adoptive stepfather. Like he came to I've never met my biological father, and I had a severely mentally ill mom. And so he didn't come to the picture, I would have been in foster care or prison or dead. I have a partner in crime, my soulmate, who was actually the founding head of engineering at Mindbloom for the first 4 years. We've been here for 16 years, friends. And through my psychedelic experiences, one of the things that comes up most frequently is just how important those relationships are, and like how I could just do a lot more to like appreciate them, savor them, and like invest in them, how much I take them for granted. And so I feel like one common thing that comes up for psychedelics experiences for people is people go in with their intentions, myself included, thinking that they want to work on X, like, oh, I want to be more inspired at work, or, oh, like I want to figure out where to take my career, or I want to figure out like how to quit vaping nicotine. And then what ends up coming up, kind of this idea of you get the experience you need, not the one you want. What ends up coming up is like so much more profound than the thing you thought you needed to work on. And so it's like, oh, I thought I needed to work on like how to feel more inspired at work, but what actually I really need to work on is I have these incredible relationships in my life that I'm talking about or thinking about or paying attention to right now, because I'm thinking about this micro thing, like how do I be more productive or something at work?
Well, what's an example of some intentions, without names attached to them? And then what have been some of like the testimonials or, realizations that people had that you thought were powerful or pretty cool to talk about?
Yeah, I'll do it right now. I will literally pull up I sent out an investor update a couple days ago, and I always share a client story of the month. I am someone who has looked into every method for help. I am 52 and have lived a life full of anxiety since 4th grade. Mindbloom has been by far the most helpful treatment I've experienced. Brian, the most common testimonials we get, the words life-changing and life-saving are literally the plurality terms that people use. And other ones feels like years of therapy and just like a couple sessions. And those sound like outrageous, but that's like how bad the mental health crisis is. And that's how deficient existing treatment options are. SSRIs like essentially don't work. For people who have major depression, SSRIs, which 50 million Americans take, will only work better than a sugar pill, than a placebo, for 1 out of 7 people. For mild or moderate anxiety, for depression, 1 out of 18 people will get better results than a sugar pill. But about 50% of people have serious side effects: weight gain, sexual dysfunction, insomnia, sometimes suicidality. Literally, suicidality is a side effect of SSRIs. Ketamine therapy.
Terrible or ridiculous.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. It's really tough for patients. It's really tough for providers too. Like you think about it, you go into psychiatry. So you do pre-med, then you go to medical school, then you do a specialty in psychiatry. You get out to start practicing, maybe like in your 30s or 30, and you're told that you're going to have all these tools to solve a mental health crisis, and then you're given SSRIs, and you're told, okay, here you go, and then you just see person after person after person who comes in with you absolutely struggling for like 5, 10, 15, 20 years often, and you're just cycling them through these antidepressants and then trying to treat all their side effects while the antidepressants don't work. Brutal.
That's terrible. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I should have asked you at the very beginning, but who is ketamine for and who is it not for? I know everyone has to be evaluated, or at least evaluate themselves, but in general, when do you think ketamine might benefit someone based on what they're saying to you?
So at Mindbloom today, we're prescribing for anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Anything from light symptomology to pretty severe symptomology. We actually screen a lot more people out whose symptoms are more severe than like they don't have enough symptoms. And we refer those out to in-person providers, which is probably just playing a little too safe, to be honest. And so that's what we're prescribing for. But honestly, like it should be elective. Like right now, the current mental health system and really all of medicine is what I call like medicine 1.0. It's reactive. It's waiting until you have like a disease state or a problem to treat you. And we're moving towards medicine 2.0, which is more proactive, it's personalized, and it's not about like waiting till you're sick to treat you. It's about helping you be as healthy as possible, both to live the best life possible you can, but also so you don't get sick. Like, when somebody's pre-diabetic, that's too late to start talking about diet, exercise, or even GLP-1s. Like we would want you to be, as healthy as possible so that you never even come close to being pre-diabetic. So people like fit and healthy and vibrant and don't get sick. And so ketamine and psychedelic medicine will move towards more elective treatment over time because there's not just like your normal or you have depression, anxiety, or PTSD. There are obviously gradients of mental health and well-being. Anything from like you're okay to, you are feeling incredible on cloud 9, high energy levels, great mood, high libido, well rested, happy. It's self-evident to say that there's a gap between okay and super happy. And so ketamine can't help, just like other psychedelics, people go from okay to extremely high levels of mental health and well-being. But today, Mindbloom and most other providers, I think all other providers really are prescribing for at least light symptoms of anxiety, depression, and PTSD. So we do diagnose people with those things, and they come in with those diagnoses. However, we've normalized those things. So a lot of people will say, well, I don't think I have anxiety. But if you take an anxiety screener, it turns out like you actually do have light anxiety or like mild anxiety. It's not normal to feel restless. It's not normal to sleep, have sleep problems half the days of the week. It's not normal like to be overly worried about the future. But we've normalized that in society. One thing that's been interesting is that our clients are often older Americans. So 70% of our clients are actually between the ages of 37 and 57. We have more clients, I believe, over the age of 65 now than in their 20s. And that was surprising to me, but it wasn't surprising to our clinical team. And that's because like today we see younger Americans talking about mental health stuff a lot, which is great. It's helping to destigmatize it. But it's actually older Americans who really suffer often from mental health issues. So they have gone through life and all the challenges of life. And
for many years, I mean, when these people were younger, it was a big stigma. You're crazy. You need to put in an asylum, that kind of stuff. And then, so I'm 50. I'm not as old as some of the patients, let's say, but I just remember it was different back in the day. And even as late as the 90s, early 2000s, there wasn't the support for mental health like there is now. So I wouldn't doubt that these people carried it for decades. And just, I guess they got older, it just got to be so much of a burden that they finally said, all right, I'll do something. It's only because places like you guys are available that people will do that stuff. It wasn't around for a long time.
Totally. But the biggest thing is it didn't matter if they did something because the stuff they were doing when it doesn't work. So like even if they do go and take antidepressants, even if they do go to talk therapy, which has been shown to be no more effective than placebo, even if they do take Xanax, which doesn't work to cure depression or to cure anxiety, it just reduces the symptoms temporarily. Those things don't work. There are some schools of therapy that look like they do work, some protocols. ACT therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy. I think you had a guest or two on your podcast talking about that. I just listened to an episode up.
Yeah, I heard much better things than CBT. ACT much much better. Yeah.
Yeah, CBT is just the adherence rates are really low. Like I did CBT for insomnia. I think it's like 9% adherence rates. I don't know. I'm surprised it's 9%. It was possible. DBT therapy also really effective. Dialectical behavioral therapy. It is a sort of I call it a subcategory of CBT therapy for emotional regulation. And so there are certain types of people with borderline personality disorder, or just people who their emotions are getting in the way often of them living a happy, healthy life and having healthy relationships with friends, romantic partners, work, etc. That can be extremely effective. I also think there are some other interesting emerging therapies. IFS, internal family systems. I think the clinical data is not there yet, but there's like enough people who really seem to be getting some incredible outcomes that there seems to be something there. Hakomi therapy is also interesting. It's a little bit more holistic, but it's seen in like aligned with the psychedelic therapy modality, but a little different. I think it's really interesting as well. But the traditional,
Going back to ketamine for a minute, what percentage of people do not get relief or do not seem to have any sustainable help from it, even if they've done it 20 times?
Yeah, so the peer-reviewed clinical studies that we've published, and we're due for another one, have been for the last one was, I believe, over 14,000 patients, and I believe it was 89% of patients saw improvements.
So if someone's, been doing it for a while, they're just not really getting any sustainable help. Does that mean they're doing it wrong more likely than it's the therapy that's not working for them?
I think there's a few things that, so this is more just my personal view. One would be adherence. So oftentimes the challenge is they just never really gave it a shot, right? Like they didn't really onboard to it. They didn't modulate to the right dose. They gave up a little early. We see that a lot. So we start people at like a low dose, and we have our own dosing system that we've developed called 3P dosing. So it's dosing that's personalized, it's dosing that's precise, and it's dosing that's proactive. So we really do a lot of work to really proactively get people to the right therapeutic dose for them, because it really is different for everybody with ketamine or any other psychedelic. And so some people just give up. They get a session or two in and they throw up their hands and are like, this doesn't work for me, before they really give a shot. Other people, it just doesn't agree with them. So you see this with other psychedelics too. Some people, for me, like MDMA was the first psychedelic I did and the most important one I've ever done. And it was completely life-changing for me. I used to be really angry, resentful, had complex PTSD, which I came to learn later. We get in fist fights. I'm like, I never got kicked out of college or go to prison or worse. MDMA helped open me up emotionally and helped me engage with my PTSD and my ego, which had a lot of barriers and defenses built up, that would present as arrogance, but was really, I think more like fear and insecurity. It was life-changing for me. And we see that often with veterans with PTSD. MDMA seems to be incredible for. Other people, MDMA doesn't really agree with them. And psilocybin might be the psychedelic medicine that's most powerful, or ketamine. So I think often it's and we're trying to get better over time, and we're using AI to do this too, to match the right patient with the right dosing, with the right protocol, with the right providers at the right time. And as we have more and more psychedelics and other novel and emerging neurotechnologies, we're just going to get better and better at matching the right person to the right medicine in the right way. But we're still really early to figure that out. But one interesting thing, for instance, seems to be that people with anxiety need higher doses. They fight it more. And that's one interesting thing where we have seen that we're potentially adjusting our clinical protocols around.
So when someone, when the ketamine quote unquote work, does it work forever? Or, would it work for, let's say, 3 months, they got to get a booster or something, or work for 6 months? What happens with people that, again, quote unquote, it works?
I mean, it's not a great answer, but it just depends. It's some people, it also depends on what happens in life. Things happen in life too. Again, mental health is it's really interesting because it's kind of a dimensional, not categorical health issue. And by that, I mean, you either have a bacterial infection or you don't. And so when you get treated for the bacterial infection, the idea is that the bacterial infection goes away. And so, whether or not you get in the future means where you're re-exposed to this bacteria or different bacteria. But depression, anxiety, PTSD, these are disease states where you just eliminate it and never comes back. These are unhealthy patterns and essentially neural pathways in your brain that get worse over time because they feed themselves in a bad positive feedback loop. A positive feedback loop feeds itself, but it's not a good direction, this one, right? So negative brain chemistry creates negative thoughts that beget negative emotions, which beget negative behavioral patterns, right? Don't diet, don't eat healthy, you don't exercise, you don't get out of bed in the morning. And it just feeds itself and gets worse and worse and worse. That's why oftentimes people in these states can feel like they're totally buried, and the idea of getting out of it just seems impossible. And so what ketamine and other psychedelics do is create this state of neuroplasticity neuroplasticity where the brain can more easily change its wiring and get people out of that state very, very quickly. And that can persist. In fact, usually does persist. So an analogy or metaphor would be your neural pathways in your brain are kind of like somebody who's like walking through the snow every day, and it creates deeper and deeper grooves in the snow, or at some point the grooves are very, very deep and like you can't get out of those grooves. And then what taking ketamine does is creates this neuroplastic state of neuroplasticity, where now it's like snow covers in those grooves and you can now like walk a different path easily and carve a new path. So for a lot of people it persists. And then also like stuff comes up in people's life. So somebody who's coming in with, depression for one thing, they might have a severe death in the family that puts them back into a, depressive grief state. So I think of it more as like it is a tool that extremely consistently, so again, 89% of people who do ketamine therapy, at least with Mindbloom, I can't speak to other people's clinical outcomes, and I think ours are amongst the only that are peer-reviewed and published, especially large provider groups. For 89% of people, it improves their mental health noticeably. And for like something like 63% of people, like full remission from something like suicidality, it is really stunning. I mean, it works at a high level, like 10 times better than SSRIs. It works for way more people at a way higher magnitude or effect size, we call it in clinical research, with 10 times fewer effects. SSRIs are 50% of people have side effects. Ketamine is less than 5%, and the side effects are way lighter. And it works way faster. So ketamine works after like a session or two, whereas SSRIs take 6 to 8 weeks to even know if they're working.
Yeah. I mean, again, the people that get benefits, they feel better. Do they have to go back in periodically for like a re-up, or are certain aspects of their, issues gone forever and other ones linger? Like, what do you see?
Yeah. So we see there's kind of different reasons that people come back to. Some people are like, I feel better. I want to feel, but there's more work to be done. Like I've like reduced my depression like 50% and I want to get all the way out of depression. So I'm going to keep going. Some people are like, I feel great and I want to feel even better. Like I'm much so I don't fall back into a depressive state again. Like my symptoms are very light now, but I want to get to a place where like they're just obliterated. Other people want to be on a maintenance, so they don't want to risk slipping. And so they'll go on like a steady maintenance. And some people are just good for a while. And so we have some clients who continue on with us, some clients who come back from time to time, and some who, we've like caught up with them 5-6 years after, and they're like, I'm good. This changed, this was a one and done for me, and I've never slipped back into depression and anxiety since. Last time I checked, I believe it's of people who like complete an initial 6-session program with us. I believe about 60% are choosing to continue on within the next like couple years. But again, some are right away. Some are...
I've heard a term, treatment-resistant depression. Is that a BS term or is that a real thing?
Yeah, it's BS. It just means that you tried a few antidepressants, they didn't work for you, which just means you tried antidepressants and then you didn't quit them. You kept trying them, which is pretty much the universal experience for people who try antidepressants.
Gotcha. All right. Well, no, this is great. So, Dylan, what's the best way for people to experience Mindbloom? Like, how do they get onboarded, or at least first start learning about it and then, contact you all for help?
Yeah, we made it really easy. Just go to mindbloom.com and you can talk to our team. You can schedule a clinical consult, but we've really sought to make this experience as like easy and seamless for people as possible, while providing like the highest level of quality care to give people the highest level of outcomes possible. And people can follow me on X or LinkedIn at Dylan Beynon.
Good. Well, Dylan, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Richard. This was a blast.
If you like this podcast, please click the link in the description to subscribe and review us on iTunes.
You've been listening to the Finding Genius podcast with Richard Jacobs. If you like what you hear, be sure to review and subscribe to the Finding Genius podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And want to be smarter than everybody else? Become a premium member at findinggeniuspodcast.com. This podcast is for information only. No advice of any kind is being given. Any action you take or don't take as a result of listening is your sole responsibility. Consult professionals when advice is needed.